I trusted Amanda with my entire heart, including access to my finances. Our wedding was only 2 weeks away, with every detail meticulously planned for our perfect day. Then came that text that shattered everything I believed about our relationship. I never imagined I would need to stand up for myself against the woman I planned to marry, but sometimes the most painful betrayals teach us our greatest strength. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on someone who betrayed my trust and our future, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If my story of standing up for myself resonates with you, hit that like and subscribe button. I am Billy, a 35-year-old software engineer from Seattle with a pretty ordinary life until 3 years ago. That was when I met Amanda at my college friend Jake's housewarming party. She walked into the crowded living room wearing a blue sundress, laughing at something someone had said. Our eyes locked across the room, and I felt something I had never experienced before. Jake introduced us, and we spent the entire evening talking in the corner, oblivious to everyone else. Amanda was a marketing executive at a rising tech company. She had this infectious enthusiasm for life that pulled me out of my routine existence. Where I was cautious and planned everything, she was spontaneous and adventurous. Our differences complemented each other perfectly. We discovered shared passions for hiking the Pacific Northwest trails, experimenting with exotic recipes, and dreaming about traveling the world together. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. I remember how nervous I felt waiting for her, checking my watch every 2 minutes. She arrived 10 minutes late, slightly flushed from rushing, her apologies genuine. By dessert, we were finishing each other's sentences and planning our second date. The following 2 years were the happiest of my life. We explored hidden trails in Olympic National Park, took cooking classes together, and even traveled to Japan for 2 weeks. Each experience deepened our connection. Amanda brought color and excitement to my world, while I provided stability and security to hers. I proposed on our second anniversary at Rattlesnake Ledge, our favorite hiking spot overlooking the lush valley below. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I had hidden the ring in my backpack all day, terrified of losing it. When I finally got down on one knee, presenting the emerald-cut diamond we had casually discussed months earlier, her eyes filled with tears. Her enthusiastic yes echoed across the mountains, and hikers nearby applauded our special moment. Wedding planning began immediately. Amanda had dreamed of a summer ceremony at Woodinville Lavender Farm. We spent weekends visiting venues, tasting cakes, and debating guest lists. My parents offered to contribute financially, and we set a budget that seemed reasonable for the elegant but intimate wedding we both wanted. As part of merging our lives, we began discussing finances. We decided to maintain separate accounts, but opened a joint account for household expenses. I added Amanda as an authorized user on my premium credit card to help with wedding purchases. The credit limit was substantial, around $20,000, as I had excellent credit and used it primarily for work travel expenses that were always reimbursed. Looking back, there were warning signs I chose to ignore. Amanda occasionally made impulsive purchases, like the $1,000 designer handbag she bought on a lunch break, or the surprise weekend getaway that stretched our monthly budget. When I expressed concern, she would become dismissive, suggesting I was being too controlling about money. Not wanting to seem stingy or untrusting, I would back down. As the wedding date approached, small arguments began to surface more frequently. What I attributed to wedding stress and pre-marriage jitters was perhaps something deeper. Still, I trusted Amanda completely. I believed that any couple facing the pressure of wedding planning experienced tensions. We would laugh about it later, I thought, once we were relaxing on our honeymoon in Maui. The week before Amanda canceled our wedding was filled with escalating arguments. What started as minor disagreements about seating arrangements erupted into deeper conflicts about our expectations for married life. I wanted to begin saving for a house and eventually start a family. Amanda suddenly seemed uncertain about children and expressed desire to travel extensively first. These fundamental differences had somehow never been thoroughly discussed until the pressure of impending marriage forced them to the surface. I came home from work on a Tuesday evening, exhausted from a demanding day debugging a critical system issue. The apartment was unusually quiet. Amanda was sitting on our couch, still in her work clothes, staring at her untouched glass of wine. She barely acknowledged my greeting. The tension in the air was palpable. After awkward small talk about my day that she hardly seemed to register, Amanda finally looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. The words she spoke next felt like physical blows. "I do not think I can go through with the wedding, Billy," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was ready, but these past few weeks have shown me that I am not. I need some space to figure things out." My mind struggled to process her words. Confusion, shock, and pain collided as I tried to form a coherent response. 2 weeks before our wedding, with deposits paid, family members booking flights, and our futures seemingly mapped out, she was having doubts. "What do you mean you cannot go through with it? We have been planning this for months." "Is this about the argument we had about the guest list?" I asked, desperate to understand what had triggered this sudden change. Amanda shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "It is not just one thing. It is everything. I feel trapped. The wedding, the expectations, the plans for a house and kids. I am not sure this is the life I want anymore." I suggested postponing the wedding couples, counseling anything to avoid the finality of what she seemed to be saying. But Amanda had made up her mind. She needed a break time away from me and from us. Within an hour, she had packed a suitcase with essential items and called a rideshare. She promised to be in touch soon, but could not say when she would return. The door closed behind her with a quiet click that somehow felt more devastating than a slam would have been. The following days passed in a blur of pain and administrative chaos. I had to notify the venue, the caterer, the florist, and dozens of other vendors that our wedding was postponed indefinitely. Most deposits were non-refundable. Then came the humiliating task of calling friends and family to explain the situation, though I barely understood it myself. My parents were supportive but concerned. My friends offered condolences as if someone had died. In many ways, something had our future together. I tried contacting Amanda multiple times. My calls went to voicemail. My texts received brief, non-committal responses. She was staying with her friend Stephanie, but needed more time before we could talk properly. Each day without real communication deepened my confusion and hurt. A week after she left, I checked our finances, partly out of necessity, and partly to distract myself with practical matters. Our joint account showed no unusual activity. My credit card, which I rarely used, personally seemed normal at first glance. I was about to log off when a notification popped up about a pending charge for a significant amount. Curious, I clicked for details. My stomach dropped. There was an $18,500 pending charge from a luxury travel agency. I immediately called the credit card company, thinking my card had been compromised. The representative informed me that the charge was authorized by Amanda Jackson, my additional cardholder. It was for a first-class ticket to Bali, a 2-week stay at an exclusive resort, and several shopping charges at high-end stores. While I was still processing this information, my phone pinged with a text from Amanda. "I maxed out your credit card for my refreshment trip. You said you love me." The casual cruelty of her message stunned me. This was not the woman I had fallen in love with. Or perhaps it was, and I had been blind to who she truly was. In a moment of shock and perhaps misguided hope that she would come to her senses, I texted back a single word: enjoy. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing between confusion, heartbreak, and growing anger. The betrayal of trust cut deep enough, but the financial exploitation added another dimension to the pain. The woman who was supposed to become my wife in days had not only walked away from our relationship, but had taken advantage of my finances in the process. The charges represented more than half of my annual savings. After 3 sleepless nights and increasingly frantic messages from friends worried about my mental state, I reached my breaking point. The initial shock had worn off, leaving clarity in its wake. This was not just about a canceled wedding or a broken heart. This was about someone deliberately taking advantage of me, believing there would be no consequences. I decided it was time to act. The turning point came at 4:30 in the morning after yet another sleepless night. I sat on my balcony watching the city lights, suddenly seeing my situation with painful clarity. Amanda had not just broken my heart, she had calculated that my love would make me absorb the financial blow without resistance. She was counting on my passivity, my desire to avoid conflict. In that moment, I realized that allowing her actions to go unchallenged would be failing myself. My college friend Derek worked in fraud prevention at a major bank. I called him later that morning, explained my situation, and asked for advice. His response was immediate and unambiguous. "Billy, what she did is textbook credit card fraud," he said. "You authorized her to use the card for wedding expenses, not for personal travel after canceling said wedding. The fact that you were arguing and she moved out before making these charges strengthens your case. You need to report this immediately. I spent the morning gathering evidence, screenshots of our text exchanges showing the deterioration of our relationship, timestamps of when she moved out, and details of the charges. With a clarity I had not felt in weeks, I called the credit card company. I spoke with Maria in the fraud department, explaining the situation honestly. I had authorized Amanda as a user for our joint expenses, primarily wedding-related, but she had moved out a week ago after canceling our wedding. The charges for international travel and luxury accommodations were made without my knowledge or consent after our relationship had effectively ended. Maria was sympathetic but thorough, asking pointed questions about our arrangement, and when I had discovered the charges, she explained that since Amanda was an authorized user, the situation was complicated, but not hopeless. Since you did not give permission for these specific charges, and they occurred after a significant change in your relationship that you can document, we can dispute them, Maria explained. However, you will need to file a police report for unauthorized use of your credit card to strengthen your case. Filing the police report was one of the hardest things I had ever done. Sitting in the precinct explaining to Officer Ramirez how my fiancée had taken advantage of my trust felt surreal. I emphasized the timeline, our relationship deteriorating, her moving out. Then the unexpected charges a week later. The officer was professional and non-judgmental as he took my statement. I provided all the documentation I had gathered, including Amanda's text message that essentially admitted to using my credit card for her personal trip after our breakup. "What do you want to come from this, sir?" Officer Ramirez asked as he completed the report. "I want the charges reversed," I replied firmly. "I cannot afford this debt, especially now that I am shouldering all the non-refundable wedding expenses alone." He nodded and handed me the police report number. The card company would need this to proceed with the fraud investigation. As I left the police station, I felt a strange mix of regret and resolve. I had never imagined reporting the woman I loved to the police, but her actions had forced my hand. Back home, I called the credit card company again, providing them with the police report number. They immediately froze the account and began their investigation. The representative assured me that any additional charges Amanda might attempt would be declined. I then did something that required more courage than I thought I possessed. I forwarded the police report number and fraud case information to Amanda, along with a brief message. "The credit card company has been notified that these charges were unauthorized. They have all the documentation they need, including our text exchanges and the police report." Her response was immediate and explosive. My phone rang repeatedly as text messages flooded in. I did not answer the calls, but read the increasingly panicked texts. "What have you done? How could you report me to the police? Those were joint expenses." I finally responded with a single text. "We both know that is not true. You made those charges after moving out and canceling our wedding. The credit card was for shared expenses while we were together, not for luxury trips after breaking up." The next morning, I received an automated notification from my credit card company. A transaction had been attempted and declined at Bali International Airport. An hour later, I got a call from a number I did not recognize. It was Amanda, her voice trembling with fury. "I have been detained at the airport. They are saying my charges were fraudulent. Fix this right now, Billy." The desperation in her voice almost made me waver. For a moment, I remembered the woman I had fallen in love with. Then I recalled her casual text about maxing out my card, the way she had walked away from our relationship and seemingly expected no consequences for her actions. "The charges were fraudulent, Amanda," I replied calmly. "You used my card without permission after ending our relationship. That is the definition of fraud." "But I am your fiancé," she protested. "You were my fiancé," I corrected her. "You ended that when you moved out and canceled our wedding. You cannot have it both ways." She cycled through various emotional tactics, pleading threatening legal action, claiming I had ruined her life, promising she would make it up to me if I just resolved this situation. I remained calm but firm. This was not about revenge, but about standing up for myself and refusing to be taken advantage of. 3 days later, the credit card company completed their investigation. They ruled in my favor, removing the charges and permanently removing Amanda as an authorized user on my account. Their determination letter cited the unauthorized nature of the transactions, the timing after our separation, and the clear documentation I had provided. Amanda returned from her abbreviated trip to find her key no longer worked at our apartment. I had changed the locks on the advice of both Derek and my parents, who worried about her potential reaction to the fraud dispute. She called from the lobby, alternating between tearful apologies and angry accusations. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near our apartment the following day to exchange her remaining belongings. The woman who sat across from me looked nothing like the confident, vibrant person I had fallen in love with. Her eyes were puffy from crying, her usual perfect appearance disheveled. "Billy, I am so sorry," she began. "I was confused and scared about the wedding. I just needed a break to clear my head. I thought you would understand about the trip. You always said you would give me the world." I had rehearsed what I would say, determined to remain composed despite the whirlwind of emotions I felt. "When I give someone the world, it is a gift freely given, not something taken without permission," I replied. "What you did was a breach of trust that cannot be repaired." She tried various approaches. She suggested couples counseling, promised to pay back every cent over time, claimed she had a momentary breakdown due to wedding stress. With each attempt, I felt more certain of my decision. "Our relationship is over, Amanda," I said finally. "I have arranged for you to collect your things from the apartment tomorrow. My friend Jake will be there to supervise. I have already begun the process of returning your engagement ring to the jeweler for store credit that I will transfer to you." Her face crumpled. "So that is it. 3 years together, and you are throwing it away over money." "This is not about money," I explained. "This is about trust and respect. You demonstrated that you have neither for me or our relationship. Untangling our lives proved complicated but necessary. The non-refundable wedding deposits were lost, but I considered it the price of discovering her true character before legally binding myself to her." The engagement ring returned for 60% of its value, provided Amanda with some financial cushion as she found a new apartment. Facing friends and family was initially humiliating. Everyone had questions I did not want to answer. Eventually, I shared a simplified version of events with my closest circle. Their support surprised and touched me. My friend Taylor invited me on a camping trip to disconnect from everything. My sister Lisa called daily to check in. My parents, who had always been somewhat reserved about Amanda, offered both emotional and practical support as I rebuilt my life. The first few months alone were the hardest. I questioned my judgment constantly. How had I missed the signs? Was there something fundamentally flawed in me that attracted or created this situation? Sleep proved elusive, and I found myself going through the motions at work, my performance noticeably suffering. At my sister's insistence, I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Vaughn, who specialized in betrayal trauma. Our weekly sessions became an anchor as I processed what had happened. "The betrayal you experienced was multifaceted," he explained, during one pivotal session. "There was the relationship betrayal of your fiancée, leaving the emotional betrayal of how she did it, and the financial betrayal that followed. Each requires its own healing process. Gradually, I developed tools to manage the intrusive thoughts and rebuild my self-trust. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my relationship with Amanda. Jake and Taylor became regular fixtures in my life again, dragging me to basketball games and hiking trips even when I insisted I was not up for it. 6 months after the breakup, I joined a rock climbing gym, something I had always been interested in, but Amanda had dismissed as too dangerous. The physical challenge provided an outlet for my emotions, while the focus required cleared my mind of rumination. I met new people there, expanding my social circle beyond memories of my previous relationship. At work, I took on challenging projects that required my complete attention, eventually earning a promotion I had been working toward for years. The professional success helped restore my confidence in other areas of my life. Dating again seemed impossible at first. The thought of trusting someone with my heart, let alone my finances, made me physically anxious. But about a year after Amanda, I agreed to a casual coffee date with Julia, a graphic designer I met through a mutual friend. We took things incredibly slowly, and I was transparent about my past experience. "I cannot promise I will not have trust issues," I told her on our third date. "I am working on it, but it is a process." Her response surprised me. "We all have baggage, Billy. The important thing is that we are conscious of it and do not make someone new pay for someone else's mistakes." The wisdom in her words struck me deeply. For the first time, I felt grateful for the painful lesson Amanda had taught me. Had we gotten married, the betrayal might have come years later, perhaps with children involved or more significant financial entanglements. As brutal as the experience was, I had been given an opportunity to learn about myself and what I truly valued in relationships before making a lifetime commitment. The most important lessons I took from the experience were about boundaries. Financial boundaries became non-negotiable for me. I learned that discussing money matters clearly, and watching how a potential partner handles financial responsibility is not unromantic, but essential. I became more attentive to how people treat service workers, whether they honor small commitments, and how they react when told, no. These are all character indicators I had previously overlooked. I also learned the critical difference between being kind and being a doormat. Standing up for myself was not cruel or vindictive. It was necessary self-care. The initial discomfort of confrontation paled in comparison to the pain of allowing someone to take advantage of me. Today, 2 years later, my life looks nothing like what I had planned with Amanda, and I am profoundly thankful for that. I approach relationships with a healthy combination of openness and discernment. I trust, but I also pay attention. I give generously, but not at the expense of my own well-being. The experience taught me that sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most important growth. I am building a life based on authentic connections with people who demonstrate their trustworthiness through consistent actions, not just words. I have learned that real love includes respect for boundaries and a desire for mutual growth, not exploitation. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to stand up for yourself when someone betrayed your trust? How did you find the strength to do what was right for you, even when it was painful? Share your story in the comments below. If this account of reclaiming your power after betrayal resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories of overcoming life challenges. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that protecting your boundaries is not selfish. It is essential for building a life of genuine connection and respect.